Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this month's webinar, where we're going to discuss some important legal updates to consumer guarantee contracts. Appreciate everyone joining us. You can find this and all of our previous webinars on our YouTube page. We encourage you to stop by there because each month we cover a wide variety of topics in our webinar, so I'm sure there's something there for everyone. If you have questions during the presentation, please enter them into the chat box. And at the end, we will have time to answer your questions. This month, I'm joined by Luann King and James Fox from our Property and Casualty Division, AJ Kierstead, our Outreach Coordinator, and of course, Keith Nye, our Deputy Commissioner, and David Betancourt, our Commissioner. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Betancourt for his opening remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. As Andrew mentioned, my name is DJ Betancourt, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Commissioner of the New Hampshire Insurance Department. And we greatly appreciate you joining us this morning to talk about an important issue. This is serving not only as our monthly webinar for this month, but also a bit of a background in a bit of an informational session about a very important bulletin that the department put forward again earlier this month. That is going to help implement some new legislation that we asked the legislature and Governor Sununu to give us. So to start out, as many know, this department over many years and in my career has believed in a very pragmatic, a very collaborative and common sense approach to overseeing the insurance laws of the state and taking, again, a common sense approach in how we regulate the products here in our market. We are firm believers in the free market system, and we believe that government should foster rather than frustrate competition. So why did we go to the legislature and ask for additional regulatory tools around consumer guarantee contracts, otherwise known as 415C products? And I'll pause for a moment to say, and I'm sure we'll get into a more detailed definition of this, but consumer guarantee products oftentimes are the types of offers and opportunities that you are given for certain types of coverages around vehicles and around major appliances, things you'll put in your home. Not limited to that, of course, but those are the most prominent types of 415C products that the consumer sees. Well, the reason we asked for greater oversight of those products is because over the past several years, we have seen egregious abuses of consumers from some companies that are not only harming those consumers, though obviously that is bad enough, but is also hindering the broader industry who do offer good 415C products because the bad actors are giving the rest of the good companies a bad name. There's major reputational harm. And my team is going to, I suspect, talk about some of those abuses, but we're talking about things like consumers receiving letters in the mail saying that they've got a very short period of time to act before they lose coverage on this supposed coverage that they got but never did over their refrigerator or stove. Very, very deceptive. And what we were seeing is that there was a particularly vulnerable population of consumers that was being disproportionately affected. And those were our seniors. You know, we take our consumer protection mission here at the department very, very seriously. And that mission applies to all Granite Staters. But we take a heightened vigilance and a heightened aggressiveness when we're seeing consumer harm that is disproportionately impacting a vulnerable population. And that was taking place in this instance. And so we decided that we needed to take action to get more tools in our toolbox to be able to appropriately oversee how these companies were operating, how they were presenting their products, and then ultimately how they were interacting with the consumer. And to help us get into all of those details this morning are some phenomenal members of my team, including James Fox, the director of our Property and Casualty Division, and I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Commissioner. The commissioner's been so involved in this. I know he says we're going to get more in depth, but he knows so much about it. He's actually covered quite a bit. But so some of this may be a bit of a repeat. And I think it's to his credit. He saw this as a major issue last year, and he was determined to correct it. And I think we've taken some huge steps in that direction. So what we're talking about here are consumer guarantee contracts, which is a statute we have in New Hampshire. It's not insurance, but it's similar to insurance. In insurance land, we don't do warranties. although some people argue that would fit the definition of insurance. But what we do handle are extended warranties. If you go, as the commissioner said, to buy a vehicle, for example, you have your warranty from the manufacturer that's given out immediately as part of the car. It's not separately purchased. And then usually at the dealer, they'll offer you what they'll call extended warranties. That's one of the major forms of a consumer guarantee contract, and that can be obviously a very expensive contract, so it is important. And then also it's you can get a lot of times on electronics. Like if you go on to like Amazon and you buy an electronic, they'll say, "Do you want to purchase this what amounts to an extended warranty for a very small amount of money?" So these products range from a very small amount of money to a very large amount of money. And again, what they're giving you is what it says. It's basically a warranty, an extended warranty. Primarily, it's a warranty. So if you read the statute, it would say you're getting a warranty. It was expanded primarily for electronics when it was originally written by the general counsel back then, Jack Zemp, to include the mishandling of of consumer goods. So that would be like if it fell, now that would you drop something. So that could also be traditional insurance and portable electronics insurance, or it can be covered under a consumer guarantee contract. We regulate the portable electronics insurance under a different statute, and then we regulate the mishandling of consumer goods also under this statute. That's basically what you can get. You can get a traditional warranty, basically something wears out when it shouldn't have, or you can get some minor insurance type bell and whistle. So then the question was, this statute has been around for a long time. Why are we looking at it? Well, most recently, as we were working with AARP, they had a good way they put it was we have the good guys, great products. They do exactly what they say they're going to do. We've got the gray area. Maybe they're not quite in compliance with all of the statutory requirements and they need some help in that area. And then we have the bad people. So our goal was the good people don't need much help, and there's a lot of those out there. The people in the gray area, they do need help, and we can hopefully get them up to speed to put them into the good zone. And then the bad people, we can at least identify them that they are the bad people, and then warn the good people of the state of New Hampshire to not do business with them. That was our goal. How did this arise? It arose through the consumer division with Deputy Commissioner Nyan used to head. And we would get, we were receiving reports of particularly seniors getting things, as the commissioner said, like postcards in the mail, and they would say stuff like vehicle registration. And then, the senior thinks, "Oh my God, is there something wrong with my registration?" And then they would say, "You must call us." And then the senior would call, and then they would listen to the sales pitch that maybe they didn't perfectly understand. Especially people who have, dementia. There's some people out there with that. And so then they were able to basically give them out their checking account information, for example, or their debit card. And then they would have then purchased what they thought was, or don't remember, was what we would call a consumer guarantee contract. And in some cases, a relative would see it in their checking account information, but they never received a contract, and it's just on their checking account. So they would contact us. We had one family that contacted us that had multiple charges because the woman was older. She was in her 80s, and she just kept falling for the same scam, and they were calling her constantly. And then, we determined, we needed to look into this further. And then one of the big problems was that we weren't really able to squarely identify exactly who we're dealing with. Because we would get, for example, a copy of the postcard that we received, but it had no information on it, which should have been a red flag, or would be a red flag to most people, or maybe most people would just throw that in the trash. But some seniors, they don't. They call because they think everybody's playing straight with them, and then they make the error. But then we have a hard time correcting it because we're not even sure who we're talking to. The best information we get is from like the families that they give us the checking account information and the contact information on that. So we were going through and trying to correct these things, and Deputy Nyan does a wonderful job with that. But we're like, this is not the way we should be approaching this. We need more of a systemic change. So we sat down, the commissioner put everybody together that's kind of worked on all these issues and brought industry in and people who were doing it correctly. And we kind of brainstormed like, what could we do to protect seniors in particular, but really protect all the residents of New Hampshire. And so we came up with Senate Bill 515, which is, fairly long, but it kind of breaks down into certain areas. As I said, the first area we wanted to handle was identification. So if you're not in this world, the insurer in this world is called the obligor. They're the ones that basically are behind the contract. But then they have, so let's say you're an obligor, and then you're selling extended warranties for motor vehicles. Then you would go to each dealership, and that dealership could then sell the product. The dealer may not look into it that much. They might sell the product, and then if there's a problem, they might give us the information, and we might have to find out that's not even an obligor. We have a hard time locating that person, or we have the postcards with nothing on there. So now, every time an obligor registers in the state of New Hampshire, which they do annually, they have to give the name, address, and phone number of the sellers. So now we'll be able to, if we get a postcard, it'll then which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but it'll have the information, must have the information on there of the seller, and then we'll be able to trace it back to the obligor. And then if we have a problem, for example, with a seller, then we can tell the obligor, all the obligors, that we expect them not to do business with this particular company anymore. So that's one way we are going to be able to hopefully protect consumers. So the next issue is forms. So historically, we've always looked at personal lines forms, rates, underwriting guidelines. We do a lot of that in insurance. We were not doing that in consumer guarantee contracts because historically we just didn't think we needed to. It became apparent after we were looking into this that we definitely do need to look at the contracts. So we took the statute that applies in insurance for form review, and we changed the names. Obviously, not insurance companies; it's obligors, and we put it into the 415C, to the consumer guarantee contract law. And now all of the insurance company, all obligors, need to submit their forms for us to review. And it's for informational purposes, but we are going to audit them. And in the beginning, it's going to be a pretty heavy duty audit because we want to review the forms and make sure in particular that there's nothing that is against the public interest. So if we find something against the public interest, just so everybody knows how we usually do that, we bring it to the deputy commissioner and the commissioner. We would discuss it with them, and then we would see what we wanted to do, which usually would be either pass a rule or pass a statute to block it. But temporarily, we just call it against public interest. So we're going to do that review, and then hopefully we can get a handle on exactly what the forms are like and how many types of forms are out there, etc. That is being led by Lou Ann King. So that was basically our the big goal. But Lou Ann's going to talk about exactly how she's worked to implement that. So it starts. So the forms must be filed, like everybody knows, by January 1st, 2025. But we did tell people, companies to please start filing now. There's not a problem. You can sign up for CERF. I'll let Lou Ann take over. Go ahead, Lou Ann.
Thank you, James. So we have been seeing quite an influx of filings come in. As James said, this is not insurance. We're doing this alongside of all of our insurance reviews. I believe the first filing came in August, and we've had almost 300 filings so far. And we anticipate from now until January 1st that trend of increased numbers of filings to continue, because basically as of January 1st, they need to be vetted through us before they can be used by the obligors. And so my team and I, we've been working diligently to try to get as many of these done as we possibly can. And some of the protections, I just wanted to take a minute. James did a really good job. I wanted to just take a minute and say some of the ways that we are making sure that these products are as consumer friendly as possible. What we're seeing from a forms review perspective, believe it or not, there's a lot that don't indicate the price itself on the contract, and that is required by the revisions made to RSA 415C that become effective January 1st, 2025. So we're making sure going forward that the price will be displayed on the contract itself. In the event of cancellation, the obligor is allowed to charge a cancellation fee, but 415C is going to put a limit on the amount of the fee. It cannot exceed $75 or 10% of the purchase price. So this is something to keep in mind. Toll-free claims numbers have to be provided. So anytime that you need to reach out to their claims department, there'll be the number has to be a toll-free number. Another big improvement is all of these consumer guarantee contracts must include a statement on there advising you that if you're not receiving satisfaction or that if they're not living up to the contract requirements, you can contact the New Hampshire Insurance Department. So it will give our contact name, address, and phone number as well. And we'll be able to assist or look into it as needed. New Hampshireites all have appeal rights if there's a arbitration or a dispute resolution in place. There's always the 415C requires that all of the contracts adhere to the appeal rights. And then even though this is not insurance, 415C requires that all of the obligors have insurance behind them. In other words, it's basically a reimbursement insurance policy. That is a real insurance policy product that we've already been reviewing. So what that means is if your obligor does not live up to their requirements to pay the claim within 60 days or give you a refund within so many days, the consumer has the ability to reach out to their insurance company for reimbursement. So all of the contracts, all of the guarantee contracts must include the insurance company's name, address, and toll-free telephone number for the consumer in the event that there's a default on the obligor. And I just wanted to emphasize that this is not insurance. So where vehicle extended warranties are very popular on insurance, I just didn't want anyone to think like by getting this that they're protected. They didn't need to get an insurance policy. They actually should. Most of them are saying right on there, this is not an insurance product and it does not replace any insurance products. So your requirement to carry insurance as it is now is still there if you have a loan or something like that. And then finally, they're all written differently. So make sure you understand what is covered and then take the time to read what is not covered. The exclusion portion is really important so that you understand what you are actually purchasing, what you're expecting at the time of a claim. And I think that's my summary for what we're doing in as far as the forms review. James, I'll send it back to you.
So just to kind of recap a little bit. So as I said before, we have the good, the great, the bad. So all of this, we know who all the players are, and we know who's selling what, and we know who's marketing what. So anybody that's in the gray, we can get to the good. As I said, we can also say that, very unequivocally, if you now this is the marketing piece. So one of the marketing things we're requiring now is no unbranded direct marketing. So if you get that postcard in the mail and it doesn't have a name on it or just has a phone number, that means we would say that that's an illegal mailer and you should go straight into the trash. We couldn't really say that before because it wasn't a requirement to have the information that's now required on it. But now we can. So that'll be much easier to say. If you receive that must be from one of the most likely one of the bad actors, or it's definitely too risky, and to just throw it in the trash. The other one that's very, very similar is, so we don't want anything unbranded, and also, as the commissioner said, some of these have a high pressure tactics, the marketing. So now high pressure tactics are illegal. And anything that we view as exploiting seniors is also illegal. So we've beefed up the marketing requirements, which is very unusual in P&C. That is not something we usually get into. That is why you have a lot of creative P&C ads on television, where you don't see as many creative health insurance ads, for example. But in this particular area, because of the concern over seniors in particular, we have increased the marketing restrictions. And as Luann said, you should try to read your contract if you can. They're not always easy to read, but I would definitely try to get a copy of the contract. And let's say you paid for the contract, and let's say you don't understand it. So then you could call the department, the consumer division, and we can definitely help you with that. And let's say you purchased the contract and you are, like, why did I do this? There's also, as Lan was saying, a right to basically say, I want out of the contract. And then if it's more than a 12-month contract, you get a pro rata return, which means that, if it's a certain length of time and you give them X amount of dollars, they have to figure out like how much of that money over that period of time is being eaten up. And then they have to give you the rest back. It's always important to remember that if it's an automobile, that usually how these things work is first you have your traditional warranty you get with the car, and then these kick in after that because you don't need them to run concurrently. So if you want to back out before it triggers, then you're going to get most of your money back, other than some administrative fee that Luann discussed. So that is, I'd say those are the big high points we wanted to let people know about. In particular for companies, just on that, I would say that we have also tried to, we are working hard to upgrade the registration technology, I guess I would call it. So it's easy to be able to file who the sellers are and to make the payments, whether you want to do them online through forms that are on the computer, or you still want to go send in paper. We're trying to be very friendly with registration options for companies, so we make that easier for them. But with that, I would say the last thing from our perspective in P&C is, and I think the commissioner would agree, we're going to let this go for a little bit of time. And then we're going to see if we, need to make some more, hopefully minor adjustments, and then be able to get the word out that, who the bad guys are, and particularly unbranded, and to not engage with them. But with that, that's, I think, all we have from the P&C perspective. So I'm not sure I'm supposed to throw it back to you, so I'm going to throw it back to the commissioner.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Luann. That was really great. I will say that it is awesome to see the attendance here at today's webinar. This is definitely one of our more well-attended webinars, and that's great. I suspect that we've got a number of folks from industry that wanted to tune in to get some details on what they can expect in the new year. But for consumers, I just wanted to take a moment to summarize simply what you've just heard. And I'd like to try to define some of the insurance lingo that you might have heard to demystify all of this a little bit, or at least to the greatest extent that I can. So again, we're talking about consumer guarantee contracts. Now, you've also heard throughout the event today us refer to them as 415C products. The reason we call them sometimes 415C products is because the law in New Hampshire that governs and regulates these particular products is RSA 415C, thus the nickname. But in any event, these particular products provide consumers with assurance that the product or service that they are purchasing is of a certain quality, and that they have recourse if any issues arise with the quality of that particular product within the warranty period. And again, you see this most often for things like appliances, electronics, and motor vehicles. So those are the types of products that we're talking about. So what prompted the department to seek greater oversight over these particular products? Well, again, as you heard, we were seeing some very troubling practices that were harming consumers. So we were seeing that marketers were employing aggressive tactics in their marketing. They were preying on seniors' vulnerabilities by putting out types of marketing techniques that tried to create a false sense of urgency through limited time offers and deadlines and discounts and things of that nature when these individuals had never purchased the product in the first place. In 2023, the New Hampshire Insurance Department's Consumer Division received nearly 100 complaints from consumers regarding these types of products. And by the time we got involved in advocating on behalf of that consumer, we recovered nearly $30,000 in fraudulent charges for those individuals. $30,000 in consumer restitution. And those for us are not just numbers. They represent a real harm inflicted upon citizens. And so again, when it falls disproportionately, that consumer harm on vulnerable populations such as senior citizens, it really does wake us up and get us very aggressive in taking a look at the situation and seeing what we need to do to make this better and to remedy these problems. One particular case, James mentioned one, but one particular case that stood out in my mind last year involved a senior citizen who was duped into purchasing a phony extended warranty for a furnace and cost that senior citizen nearly $5,000. And again, when you're a senior on fixed income, that $5,000 is a really big deal. And our team did a phenomenal job stepping up, getting aggressive, and helping get that senior their money back. So again, when you take a look at those instances and examples, when you see the impersonation tactics that further exacerbate the problem with mailers and phone calls, sometimes the mailer or the phone call is masquerading as a government agency or insurance company or a reputable organization, we simply said, look, these types of deceptive tactics just cannot take place anymore. And so we did go to the legislature. We explained to them what was going on. And I am pleased, by the way, that when we were bringing forward some of the reforms to New Hampshire's current law overseeing these products, we were joined by a broad array of industry stakeholders who assisted us in crafting this legislation so that we were getting it just right. We were protecting seniors on the one hand, while on the other hand, not damaging the market for these products, because there is a need for these products and there are a lot of good companies that offer them. So they wanted to come to the table and assist us in putting these protections together because they understood that if the bad actors were allowed to continue to engage in the tactics that we were seeing, it was going to undermine public confidence in their reputation and again would harm that market overall, which we did not want to see. Ultimately, as you've heard, we were successful in getting those changes into law. And James, I think, did a good job of summarizing those protections. So again, there is now a broader application of protections for consumers. The manufacturer's service contracts on their products now fall within the definition of consumer guarantee contracts. So that's obviously a big highlight. As Luann described, they are now required to file all service contract language with us for these products. And again, we're really aggressively overseeing the types of marketing practices that are going on so that they are not being deceptive or inappropriate. So again, two last things. The first is you've heard us use the term bulletin this morning, and folks may be wondering, well, what exactly is a bulletin? Well, a bulletin is a tool that we use that provides the public, it provides industry specifically with a better understanding of how the department is going to be interpreting a particular provision of New Hampshire law. But we also use them from time to time to make industry aware of big statutory changes, big law changes that are coming in the new year and what they need to do to be prepared to get into compliance with those new laws. And so that specifically, that educational piece is what was behind the bulletin that we issued last week and that, again, is part of today's presentation. So hopefully, again, clarifying some of the insurance lingo, hopefully to the consumer, this makes a little bit more sense to you. But the last thing I'll say, and James made the point, these protections are obviously going to be very, very helpful to consumers. But at the end of the day, consumers have to remain vigilant as well. And if something does not seem right, if you don't recall having ever purchased this product, but now there's calls about it, or you're getting letters about it, or something doesn't seem quite right, you have to come to the department. You have to give us a call. Call our consumer division. Email the consumer division. File a complaint online. We need to know how the law is going, if the protections that we wanted to see are actually coming to fruition, or if there are actors in this market who are not following the provisions of the new law. We need you to help us in that respect, but also having that healthy skepticism is going to protect you. And even if you fall into one of these schemes, again, we're here to help you, but it does take time to unravel these things. So a little bit of vigilance up front is going to save you a lot of headaches on the back end. So again, if it doesn't seem right, if something seems off, assume that it is and give us a call, and we can help to bring clarity to your situation. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Andrew to see if we've had any questions come in.
We haven't, Commissioner, but if anyone does have questions, feel free to either type them into the chat now or email us at communications@ins.nh.gov, and we can forward those to our subject matter experts and make sure you get an answer in a timely fashion. So I don't see any. James, any final thoughts? Keith, before we close?
Cover the waterfront.
Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone for joining. Again, all of our webinars are available on our YouTube page. If you have questions for us or would like to comment further on this topic or anything else, please reach out to us via email and we'll be happy to correspond with you. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next month. Take care.